Pranams to all of you. This is part 6 of the video series on Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi. And here in this video, we are going to go a little bit briefly into the teachings of Sri Bhagavan. Now, essentially, primarily, Sri Bhagavan's teaching was silence. Not the silence of the mouth, the silence of the mind and so on. A very deep, profound, living, throbbing, vibrant silence. And that silence, as Bhagavan would say very often, is the highest communication possible. The highest, right? Much more than what words can convey, what language can convey, what even music can convey. This silence, the living, profound, deep silence, vibrant silence, is way beyond all human languages. And it is direct, no misunderstanding, no errors, no mistakes, straight. But when we human beings who are limited, when we talk about Sri Bhagavan's teaching, what did Sri Bhagavan say? What was the essential, fundamental teaching of his marvelous life? What was Sri Bhagavan trying to convey? When he spoke to devotees, when he spoke to disciples, when he spoke to all the people around, at times, what was he talking about? What did Sri Bhagavan talk about? His state of being. What did he realize? People call it enlightenment, awakening, Kaivalyam, Mukti, Moksha, Jivan Mukta, what other names you have. I remember a very interesting anecdote which I had already spoken about in one of the previous videos. U.G. Krishnamurti, another great awakened being of our own times, when he was young, when he was still a seeker, a very serious spiritual seeker, he had gone to Sri Bhagavan, to Ramanasramam, and being a very inquisitive, a very sharp-minded person, U.G. sat in front of Sri Bhagavan for some time, went on looking at him, and then asked him a question. Bhagavan, people say that you are enlightened. Is that true? Are you enlightened? And Bhagavan looked at U.G. and said, yes. U.G.'s second question. Whatever that is, enlightenment and all that, whatever you have attained, can you give that enlightenment to me? Sri Bhagavan lovingly looked at U.G. and asked him, yes, I can give it, but can you take it? Right? It seems later on, much later, U.G. would tell us that was one of the profoundest turning points in his life. Something triggered in him at that moment when Bhagavan said, can you take it? So, what was Bhagavan talking about? Of course, silence and so on, but in words. His primary teaching, if at all one would call that, is to find out, to discover for yourself directly, experientially, who you really are. Who am I? What am I? You know, all of us have this very strong identification with our own bodies, with our own minds, with our own personalities, our degrees, our names, fame, popularity, the knowledge, the degrees behind our names, all that. Our identification with that is so strong. So when somebody asks you, who are you? We would repeat what we have been conditioned to say. I am Udhayakumar, or I am somebody else. I am this body. This is what I have done. These are my parents, and so on and so forth. But that is not the answer to the question. Who are you really? Who am I really? What am I? And since time immemorial, our ancient rishis and sages and yogis of yore have been telling us again and again and again, you are not what you think you are. You are not the body. You are not the mind. You are not the personality. There's a lovely, song from Adi Shankara, Nirvana Shatakham. Beautiful, Atma Shatakham. It exactly talks about this question. Who am I? Who am I really? If I am not the body, if I am not the mind, if I am not this personality, if I am not any of these things that I think I am, then what am I? What am I? Who am I really? This is the primary, the essential, the fundamental teaching of Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi. He would always direct people to themselves. Whatever questions they are asking, he would ask another question. Who is asking that question? Who is the questioner? In fact, there is another incident which again I have spoken about that in an earlier video. Paramahamsa Yogananda ji comes to visit Bhagavan Sri Ramana in Sri Ramanasramam in the early 30s, when Paul Brunton and other people are also there. So during the conversation, Paramahamsa Yogananda ji asks Sri Bhagavan about suffering. What is suffering? Why is there so much of suffering in the world? Every single human being, almost all human beings go through immense suffering, physical, emotional, psychological. Why so much of suffering? If there is God who is all compassionate and all knowing, why is there so much of suffering? And Bhagavan looked at Yogananda ji, gazed at him silently for some time, and asked him very clearly, what is suffering? Who is suffering? Yogananda ji became silent because he understood. Who is the one who is suffering? Who am I? When I say I am suffering, I am going through so much of pain, who is it that is going? Does the body come and say that I am going through suffering? Does the emotions come and tell you that I am suffering? Who is suffering? Who is going through the pain? Who am I? This is the teaching of Sri Bhagavan. Find out, discover for yourself who you really are. And right from day one, Sri Bhagavan would go on telling people, day after day after day, you're not that body, you're not that mind, you're not that personality, you're none of the memories that you carry, none of that. Find out who you are. So somewhere here and there, Sri Bhagavan gave hints. Who you are is awareness, existence, joy, bliss, Sat-Chit-Ananda, Sat, existence, Chit, consciousness, awareness, Ananda, bliss. For want of a better word, we are using the word bliss. But there is no literal translation in the English language. So, who are you? Who am I? Sat-Chit-Ananda. That is what all our rishis have been telling us all these years, right from time immemorial. Year after year, day after day, this is what they are telling us. And who you are does not have birth, does not die. Who you are, who I am, essentially is eternal, beyond birth and death, beyond pain, beyond suffering. Right? Eternal, beyond time. This is what Sri Bhagavan has been telling us through his silence, through his few words here and there. And people who have understood Sri Bhagavan, during his own lifetime and even after, they have become very, very silent. Because after the realization happens, what is there to talk about? To whom? Right? I'll try to read some of Sri Bhagavan's teachings, which he had given during his lifetime. Here and there. Of course, one can never go deeply, into all the teachings of Sri Bhagavan. That would take many, many videos. As we mentioned earlier, in brief, we are touching the teachings of Bhagavan here and there, so that we mentally, intellectually understand and eventually understand it actually, experientially. Bhagavan's this inquiry, who am I? This is not a japa. This is not a japa that you go on repeating like the nama japa that most of us do. Right? Who am I? Who am I? No, that is not a japa. This is an inquiry. Right? Inquiry into oneself. Who am I really? Deeply looking into oneself. So Bhagavan says, this is translated in English, as each thought arises, one must be watchful and ask, to whom is this thought occurring? The answer will be, to me. If you inquire, who am I, the mind will return to the source from whence it issued. The thought which arose will also submerge. This is called Atma Vichara. Atma Vichara, self-inquiry, inquiring into oneself, into the very depths of oneself. Where does the thinking arise? Where does the I thought arise? If you remember, in one of the earlier videos, we had spoken about, Kavya Ganta Ganapati Muni's profound question to Sri Bhagavan. What is tapas? And this is exactly what Sri Bhagavan said to Kavya Ganta Ganapati Muni. To go to the very source from where thought arises is tapas. To find out where the I comes from and go to the source of that is tapas, is Atma Vichara, is self-enquiry. And Bhagavan says, self-enquiry, Atma Vichara, is really possible only through intense turning inward of the mind. The mind is all the time turned outward, all the time. Right? Your waking state, your dream state, except the deep sleep state, the mind is outward moving all the time. So for something like this, Atma Vichara, self-inquiry, the mind should take a 180-degree turn. Right? Consciousness should take a 180-degree turn and look at itself. There is a beautiful saying from the Vedas, from the Upanishads, that which does the seeing cannot be seen. That which does the hearing cannot be heard. That which does the tasting cannot be tasted. That which experiences cannot be experienced. Right? Beautiful. That is directly pointing to who we are, actually, essentially. Who we are, who I am, is beyond description, is beyond words, beyond all languages. In fact, that source is the one which makes everything happen. In fact, Bhagavan used to say, and all the rishis and sages, who you are is God. God, not a personal God, Ishtadevata, but God with a capital G. The Upanishads use the word Brahman, Atman. Krishnaji uses the word the immeasurable. What is immeasurable? That which cannot be measured with the mind. That which cannot be talked about, described by any language whatsoever, which is beyond everything, and yet that is the source of everything. Right? Another teaching of Sri Bhagavan, you can never find the mind through the mind. What are we trying to do? What are the Western psychologists doing? They are trying to find out the mind using the mind. That is not possible. To find out about thinking, we are using thinking itself. I mean, what an absurd way. So, you can never find the mind through the mind. Pass beyond it in order to find that there is no such thing as the mind. Sri Bhagavan, when you inquire, what is this mind? What is mind? And turn your attention to find out where does the mind begin, Bhagavan says, you will discover for yourself there is no such thing as the mind. In simple words, what is mind? Bundle of thoughts and memories. If there is no thought, not a single thought arising, the mind is absolutely silent, right? Whatever you call that, that is absolutely silent. Where is the mind? Where is the thought? Where are memories? You think about the future? No. You think about the past? No. There is only now. Not even that word present. No. The very moment you use the word now, it's gone. That's why Krishna ji used the word immeasurable. You can't measure that. You can't capture that in thinking. What is always, what is eternally there can never ever be described. Thought can never capture that. That is what Sri Bhagavan says. Another teaching of Sri Bhagavan. We have simply to throw out all the age-long samskaras, vasanas, right? Memories that are within us, the innate tendencies within us. When all of them have been given up, the self, who you really are, who I really am, will shine alone. You know, enlightenment is not something that one gains. This is not an achievement. All this belongs to that mundane world. You cannot achieve, you cannot attain something that is already there. Effortless and choiceless awareness is our real state, is who we are. If we can attain it or be in it, it is all right. But one cannot, look at the Sri Bhagavan used the word, but one cannot reach it without effort, the initial, turning your mind inward and all that. The effort of deliberate meditation. Sri Bhagavan, uses this word here, deliberate meditation. Consciously to remind yourself to become silent, to become quiet. George Ivanovich Gurdjieff, a Russian master, uses the word self-remembrance. Remember to remember who you really are. I mean, where do you begin? Mentally, of course. Intellectually. Begin there. Few more teachings from Bhagavan. I'm going to read it out. The Guru, right? Not the teacher, not the instructor, the Guru. Who is a Guru? One who removes the darkness of ignorance. And what is ignorance? I don't know who I am. That is ignorance. That's only ignorance. So Guru is both within and without. So he creates conditions, the Guru creates conditions to drive you inward and prepares the interior to drag you to the center. Guru may not necessarily be in the human form, could be in any form. An inspiring thought comes. You read an inspiring book, a music, a chanting, a conversation with your friend, nature, satsang can happen through. All these are different forms of the Guru. Without the grace of that Guru, grace of that universe, grace of whatever you want to call that, without grace, this very idea, this very thought, this very desire to know who I am, what I am, actually in daily life does not come at all, does not arise. Bhagavan often used to say, there is only grace. When we complain, God is not, being kind to me, God is, punishing me. No, what you call God, what we call God is way beyond all that. Right? There is only grace, eternally flowing. Then why are people like us, we are not able to experience and know it? Ignorance. Layers and layers and layers of ignorance. Again, Sri Bhagavan. God and Guru are one and the same. What we call, the word we use, God and the Guru are not two, actually one. Another beautiful teaching of Sri Bhagavan, that which is peace. All that we need to do is keep quiet. Peace is our real nature. Peace is another name of who we are, our essential nature. Right? So, the great rishis used to say that the eternal is nameless and yet has millions and millions and billions and trillions of names. In fact, every name is that. And yet, beyond all names. It apparently looks contradictory, but it is not. Right? And in his lifetime, Bhagavan, now and then used to clarify the doubts of devotees, the doubts, disciples have in his own way. Very few words. Someone asked Sri Bhagavan, Bhagavan, what is your essential teaching? What is your teaching? What are you trying to teach us? As usual, Bhagavan was reclining in his sofa and he became absolutely silent. It didn't become, he was already that. Absolutely silent. Whatever words was used before, that also stopped. Absolutely silent. And this person who raised that question was waiting for Bhagavan to answer. Bhagavan, what is your teaching? He was waiting, go on looking at Bhagavan. He went on looking at Sri Bhagavan. Minutes passed. Maybe a couple of hours. And this devotee was still waiting for Bhagavan to say something. And then finally, becoming restless, The devotee asked Sri Bhagavan, Bhagavan, I asked you a question. What is your teaching? Please tell us. And Sri Bhagavan looked at the devotee and said, that is what I was doing all along. You asked me what is my teaching, and I was replying to you. Didn't you understand? See that? I mean, once, there's a lovely story. Once, there were a group of monkeys sitting around Sri Bhagavan. Bhagavan was feeding them groundnuts and whatever little, and they were taking it from Bhagavan's hands and all that. So, Bhagavan was talking to those monkeys about self-inquiry, about realization, about who they really are. And there were a couple of attendants close by. They were watching, listening to the whole conversation and watching what was going on. And little later on, they said, Bhagavan, you're teaching all this to the monkeys. Do they really understand what you're talking about? And Sri Bhagavan looked at the attendants and said, that is exactly what I am doing with human beings also. Do they understand? Right? Cow Lakshmi, devotees and even Bhagavan used to say, she understood everything that Bhagavan was talking about, not talking about, in her own way. The animals understood. Dogs in Bhagavan's presence understood. There was one dog, Bhagavan was sitting in the hall, and devotees were sitting all very quietly, eyes closed, silent and all that. And there was this dog sitting, Jackie. And the dog was, sitting very quiet, went on looking at Bhagavan. And then another dog passed outside the ashram, just went by. And this dog, Jackie, saw that and started barking. And Bhagavan looked at the dog, said, if you keep your eyes closed and sit quiet, you don't have to bother about what's going on in the outside. Immediately, you won't believe this, immediately the dog straightened up, closed his eyes, sat very quietly. Animals understood. We humans have so many questions. Question after question after question. So, essentially, Bhagavan was encouraging us day after day after day, even when he was in his body and even when he left his body. This is his essential way of teaching. He was all the time telling us, find out who you are, find out who you are. Realize who you are. You are not this body, you are not this mind, you are not this personality, you are none of this. Look at yourself. Every now and then remind yourself to look at yourself. Find out what is going on within you. Who are you really? Non-verbally, verbally, this is what Bhagavan was all the time talking about. Even now, if you go to Ramanasramam and sit there in the hall where Bhagavan was sitting all the time, silently, keep quiet, maybe we will understand what Bhagavan was trying to say, trying to convey. And definitely what Bhagavan was trying to say or trying to make us understand, or what the rishis were trying to speak and convey through their language and verses and shruti and what have you, very difficult to convey that through words. There's a beautiful story, Zen story, which comes to my mind. I have told this earlier also in many of the videos. I'm just repeating. Those who have watched my previous video will understand this is an old story that I've already said. Three Buddhist monks in a Buddhist monastery one day decided they will observe Mauna Vradam. You know what is Mauna Vradam? Not to talk at all, to keep your mouth shut. Open it except for eating and drinking water or whatever. A Mauna Vradam, 1 week Mauna Vradam. These three Buddhist monks decided. Tomorrow onwards, they will keep quiet. And those days, hundreds of years ago, there was no electricity and all that. So they had to light the wick lamps. First day, all the three monks, absolutely quiet. Nobody spoke. Second day, beautiful. The Mauna Vradam was progressing. But towards the evening, one of the Buddhist monk who was observing Mauna Vradam, habitually, it just came out. One attendant was passing by. It was evening, getting dark. And the moment the attendant was going, through the pathway, he called out, "Hey, it's getting dark. Light the lamp." The second Buddhist monk who was close by, who was listening to all that, he said, "God, why did you talk? You've broken the Mauna Vradam." The third Buddhist monk who was coming towards them, he heard the conversation. He had a grin in his face and he said, "I am the only one who did not talk." There. How will you convey this? How will you convey silence through words? How will you control the mind? I am using the word control. How will you control the mind using the mind? Right? This is what we have been doing. We have been playing tricks with ourselves all the time. Control thinking, control thought, control the mind. Sorry, that will not work. Never. Right? So Bhagavan's teaching, self-inquiry, Atma Vichara, self-inquiry to find out who you really are. This can not be done by other people for you. They can of course help you, inspire you, maybe show you. Right? But the work has to be done by you. I have to do my own work to know who I am, to understand who I am, to realize who I am. I have to do the work. Of course, the whole universe will contribute towards your discovery. Of course. And understand the very awakening of the desire to find out who you are, what you are, is grace. Anugraha. Without anugraha, this does not come. Right? So this is the teaching of Sri Bhagavan. Find out who you are, what you are. Pranams to the great Sri Ramana Bhagavan. So with this, we come to the end of this video. Thank you. Pranams to all of you.